The December wind cut through my thin jacket as I stood on the doorstep of the Mason family estate, watching my mother-in-law's perfectly manicured hand wave goodbye before she slammed the heavy oak door in my face. I placed a protective hand over my growing belly, trying to process how quickly everything had fallen apart. My name is Emma Chun, and at 28 years old, I found myself pregnant, alone, and locked out of what had been my home for the past 3 years. But Victoria Mason had no idea what she had just done, or who she was really dealing with. "You'll thank me for this later, James," I heard her say through the door to my husband. "She was never good enough for you. No connections, no family money, just some scholarship girl who got lucky." I waited for James to defend me, to say something, anything. But his silence spoke volumes. The same silence that had crept into our marriage over the past few months, as his mother's influence poisoned everything we had built together. The irony was, Victoria Mason was right about one thing. I had gotten lucky. But not in the way she thought. 3 years ago, I was a software engineer fresh out of MIT, working on an AI algorithm that had the potential to revolutionize supply chain management. James and I met at a tech conference where I was presenting my research. He was there representing his family's shipping company, Mason Global Logistics. It was love at first sight. Or at least, that's what I thought. The wedding was rushed, small, intimate. Victoria never approved, but James had insisted. "We don't need their blessing," he had said back then. "We just need each other." Those words felt hollow now as I stood in the cold, watching my breath form clouds in the frigid air. What Victoria didn't know was that for the past year, I had been building something in secret, something that would change everything. The algorithm I had been developing wasn't just theoretical anymore. It was ready. And while Victoria was busy planning charity galas and criticizing my common background, I had been quietly meeting with investors, securing patents, and laying the groundwork for my own company. I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling slightly from both the cold and adrenaline, and dialed the one person I knew I could count on. "Maya," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "It's happening." They kicked me out. Maya Chun, my older sister and brilliant corporate lawyer, didn't miss a beat. "I'm on my way. The apartment is ready. Time to launch Plan B." I could hear her grabbing her keys, the determination in her voice giving me strength. Maya had always been my rock, especially after we lost our parents in the accident 10 years ago. She was the one who had encouraged me to keep working on my algorithm, even after I married James. "Never put all your eggs in one basket, little sister," she had warned me. Especially not a golden one. As I waited for her, my mind replayed my last conversation with James earlier that morning. He had found the prenatal vitamins in my drawer. Instead of happiness, I saw worry in his eyes. "Did you plan this?" he asked, his voice tight. "Is this some kind of trap?" The accusation had stunned me. "Trap?" "James, we're married. We talked about having children. Mother thinks the timing is suspicious," he said, running a hand through his hair. "With the company's merger coming up. I should have seen it then. How deeply his mother's paranoia had infected him. How the sweet, supportive man I had married had become just another puppet in Victoria Mason's grand plan for her family's dynasty." Maya's sleek black Tesla pulled up to the curb, and she jumped out, wrapping me in a fierce hug. "Those pretentious snobs," she muttered, helping me with my bags. "Just wait until they see what's coming." As we drove away from the Mason estate, a strange sense of calm settled over me. Victoria thought she was protecting her family's empire by getting rid of me. She had no idea she had just set in motion exactly what I had been waiting for. Maya glanced at me as she navigated through the city streets. "You okay? The stress isn't good for the baby." I placed a hand on my belly, feeling a small kick. "I'm fine. Better than fine, actually." I turned to her. "Remember how you told me to always have a backup plan?" She nodded as she turned onto the highway leading downtown. "Well," I said, pulling out my laptop, "I have something to show you." Maya's brows furrowed as I opened my screen, revealing the results of my latest simulation. "I've created an AI-driven logistics system that can predict supply chain disruptions before they happen, optimize shipping routes in real time, and reduce costs by up to 40%. I met her gaze. "I call it Chain Sight." Maya's eyes widened. "And you've tested this?" I nodded. "James gave me full access to their systems when we got married. He wanted me to understand the family business." Victoria was furious, but he insisted. "I've been running simulations for months, perfecting the algorithm." Maya pulled into her building's parking garage and turned to face me. "Emma, do you realize what you have here?" I do, I said, closing my laptop. And so do the venture capitalists I've been meeting with. They're ready to fund Chainsite's launch. We're just waiting for my signal. Maya's face broke into a slow, knowing grin. And Victoria just gave you the perfect reason to launch. As we rode the elevator to Maya's penthouse apartment, I thought about Victoria's smug face as she pushed me out the door. She thought she was getting rid of a gold digger, a nobody who had trapped her precious son. Instead, she had just freed me to become her biggest competitor. Maya's apartment was everything the Mason estate wasn't: modern, minimal, warm. She had set up the guest room for me weeks ago, just in case. My sister had always been the pragmatic one. Get some rest, she said, helping me unpack. Tomorrow we start making calls. It's time to show the Masons what a nobody from nowhere can really do. That night, as I lay in bed, my hand resting on my growing belly, I felt stronger than I had in months. Victoria thought she was protecting her family's legacy. Instead, she had just given me the push I needed to build my own. My phone buzzed, a text from James. Mother says this is for the best. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Let him think I was broken. Devastated. Let Victoria believe she had won. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I woke up to an email from my lead investor, Sarah Chin. No relation, but we always joked about it. Ready when you are. Say the word, and we'll start the funding round. I looked out Maya's window at the city skyline, where Mason Global's headquarters dominated the view. Soon, they'd see my company's name up there too. But first, I had work to do. 6 months after Victoria Mason slammed the door in my face, I stood before a packed conference room at the National Logistics Convention. My hand rested on my now visible baby bump as I prepared to demonstrate Chainsite to the industry's biggest players. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mason Global's leadership team sat in the front row, Victoria and James among them. Victoria's face was set in its usual mask of cold disdain, but I caught the tension in her jaw. James looked pale. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice steady despite the flutter of movement in my belly. What you're about to see will revolutionize supply chain management. I launched into the demonstration, showcasing real-time optimization of shipping routes and predictive analytics that could save companies millions. As I spoke, I watched Victoria's expression shift from dismissive to concerned. By the time I revealed the cost-saving projections, her knuckles were white against the armrests. The past 6 months had been intense. Maya and I had worked tirelessly, building our company from her penthouse apartment. Our team grew rapidly, brilliant engineers and developers who believed in the vision. Pregnancy hadn't been easy, but every kick from my baby reminded me why I was doing this. Victoria had tried everything to stop us. First, cease and desist letters, claiming I'd stolen proprietary information. Maya's legal team shut that down quickly. Then, a whisper campaign, spreading rumors about my character. But Victoria underestimated how ready the industry was for change. Early trials with smaller shipping companies had produced results too significant to ignore. Any questions? I concluded. The room erupted with raised hands, but Victoria was already on her feet. This is nothing but smoke and mirrors, she snapped. Miss Chin claims her system can reduce costs by 40%, but where's the proof? Mason Global has led this industry for generations. We know what's possible and what isn't. I had anticipated this moment. Excellent question, Mrs. Mason. Perhaps your son can help answer it, since he's seen the system in action. All eyes turned to James, who looked like he wanted to disappear. He knew exactly what I meant. The trial runs I had done using Mason Global's data, which he had enthusiastically approved before his mother intervened. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. Really? I pulled up a series of emails on the screen behind me. Because according to these messages, you were quite impressed. In fact, you called the results revolutionary and suggested implementing them company-wide. Victoria's face turned scarlet. The emails didn't just expose her lies. They proved every accusation she'd made about me was false. James had been my biggest supporter until she turned him against me. After the presentation, investors swarmed us. Maya handled most of them, her legal expertise invaluable as we fielded partnership offers. I noticed James hovering at the edge of the crowd before finally approaching me. Emma, he said quietly, can we talk? I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in months. The man I had fallen in love with seemed smaller, diminished. About what, James? About how you let your mother kick out your pregnant wife. Or how you spent the last 6 months trying to destroy what I built. He flinched. I didn't know about the baby. Mother said. That's the problem. I cut him off. Mother said. Mother thinks. When was the last time you thought for yourself? The company's stock dropped 15% after your presentation, he admitted. Mother's furious. The board is asking questions. Maybe we could work something out. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Now you want to work something out? After everything. You're still my wife, he said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. Actually, I'm not. The divorce papers were delivered to your office this morning. Maya's firm handled everything. You should read them carefully, especially the part about the baby. His face fell. Emma, please. That's my child too. Yes, I agreed. And you'll have visitation rights. But you lost the right to be a father the day you chose your mother over your family. Maya appeared at my elbow. Everything okay here? James stepped back, his shoulders slumping. I am sorry, Emma. For everything. I'm not, I said honestly. Everything that happened led me here. Chainsight is revolutionizing the industry, and we're just getting started. So thank your mother for me. She gave me exactly what I needed. Freedom. As he walked away, Maya squeezed my arm. You okay? I nodded, watching James disappear into the crowd. Better than okay. Did you see the partnership offers we got today? 6 major shipping companies want to implement Chainsight immediately, Maya confirmed. And that's just the beginning. Victoria's worst nightmare is coming true. You're not just competing with Mason Global. You're going to surpass them. 2 weeks later, I sat in my new office, reviewing our latest performance reports. Chainsight was growing faster than even our most optimistic projections had predicted. Companies were switching to our system in droves, drawn by the cost savings and efficiency. Mason Global's stock continued to fall as investors questioned their ability to compete. I had heard through industry gossip that Victoria had been forced to step down from the board. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Maya entered, waving a tablet. You need to see this. The headline made me catch my breath. Mason Global announces major restructuring. CEO James Mason steps down. He's leaving the company? I asked. Maya nodded. Word is he's starting his own venture. Something about embracing innovation in logistics. I sat back, absently rubbing my belly as the baby kicked. His mother must be beside herself. Oh, she is, Maya grinned. But that's not all. Look at the last paragraph. I read it and felt a strange mix of emotions. In a surprising move, James Mason has expressed interest in collaborating with emerging industry leaders, specifically citing Chainsight's revolutionary approach. What do you think? Maya asked. Should we hear him out? I thought about it, remembering the man I had fallen in love with. The one who had been excited about innovation before his mother took over. Maybe free from Victoria's control, that man still existed somewhere. Set up a meeting, I decided. But make it clear, this is business. Nothing more. If he wants to work with Chainsight, he'll need to prove himself. Maya nodded. And Victoria? I smiled, thinking of my former mother-in-law and her grand plans for her family's legacy. She can watch from the sidelines as everything she tried to protect is transformed by the nobody from nowhere she threw out in the cold. The baby kicked again, stronger this time. In 2 months, I would be a mother myself. But unlike Victoria, I would teach my child that true legacy isn't about control. It's about having the courage to create something new. Victoria thought she had secured her son's inheritance when she cast me out. Instead, she triggered a revolution in the industry she thought she controlled, led by the very person she underestimated the most. I looked out my office window, where the Chainsight logo now shone just as brightly as Mason Global's. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's soaring higher than your enemies ever thought possible.